With Your Legs Media. You know what to do. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thanks. We got lots of stuff coming up.
What's up, and welcome once again to Say With Your Legs Media, to all my cyclists out there, to all my riders out there. They're doing that one thing when they get on their bike. They don't talk about it. They don't take pictures about it. They get on their bikes, they use their legs, and they say it with their legs. That's what we're about, saying it with your legs. That's what the sport is about. Let's get on your bike, say it with your legs. So first, before we get started, we got to shout out Supacolour. They do the heat transfers on my t-shirts. Fantastic product. And there's like a little logo on the back, as you can see in the t-shirt below. There's a little logo on the back, on the neck. So I think that's pretty cool. And then also Vice Cards is the last business card you would ever need. It's a digital card. Basically, all you do is you take the card and then you just tap it to someone's phone and it transfers all your information. Done deal. Let's go. Let's get into this. Are you ready? I'm ready for this. So we're talking about Eusebio Unzue. I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but his Unzue is his last name, and he is saying that the sport of cycling is inhumane. Okay, let's get into his thoughts, and then we're going to talk about it. He said this is the team boss. This team boss thinks the Grand Tours are inhumane, and he may have a point. It says Team Movistar General Manager Eusebio Unzue believes Grand Tours should be shortened and the rider substitution should be allowed. All sports evolve, he says. I'm going to get into what I think and my feelings after I read what he has to say, because if I get into what I think, it's going to be like 30-40 minutes, and we don't need that. We're not here for that. So Grand Tours are humane, he says. The feature of the races is that's a feature of the race, not a bug, for events that are widely regarded as among the toughest, if not the toughest. Test in all sports to be framed as inhumane seems like a little more of a descriptor rather than a distraction. So he spoke to the magazine L'Equipe, and this is what he had to say. However, according to Team Movistar General Manager Eusebio Unzue, perhaps cycling needs to make its Grand Tours a bit more humane. Speaking to L'Equipe in advance of the Tour of Colombia, Unzue wondered why the cycling Grand Tours are still as brutal as they were 40 decades ago. All sports evolve, Unzue said, but we continue to do the same thing as 40 years ago. Since I started in the 1980s, the rules have changed very little, and I think it's time to adapt, he says. What adaptations might Unzue be suggesting? Perhaps the most radical idea the Movistar boss laid out was shortening of the Grand Tours from 3 weeks to 2 weeks. Really? Which would allow more riders to compete in all three races. It would add to the spectacle to see the best racing against each other more often, Unzue said, ignoring the fact that last year's Volta a España winner and American Sepp Kuss competed in both the girod'italia, the Tour de France, before his late summer Volta win. That's the Tour of Spain. Of course, Kuss is the exception to the rule, as most team leaders focus on one Grand Tour, maybe two. So as we get on, Unzue's other big idea seemed to come from a bit more personal. Let me say, how did he say that? Come from a bit more personal of a place. Okay, anyway, we'll work with that. As he wondered why cycling had yet to institute some sort of substitution rule for riders who abandon stage races due to injury, or at least give those riders the opportunity to resume racing the following day. If a rider falls, he must sometimes suffer like an animal to reach the finish in order to have the right to continue again the next day. Unzue said, why not allow him to get into the car or an ambulance, have it examined, and compete the next day if there's nothing broken? Unzue's comments were spurred by the fact that Movistar lost its team leader Enrique Mas on the very first day of the last year's Tour de France. All but dashing the hopes of the podium finish with 24 stages to go. According to Unzue's idea, teams of riders who crash out in the first week of the Grand Tour should be allowed to plug substitute riders into their lineup. To avoid any sort of system gaming by teams, the substitute rider would be placed last in the general classification standings. Why not allow Mas to be replaced, at least during the first week, and continue with 8 riders? Unzue wondered. Cycling is a sport deeply rooted in tradition, but Unzue's point, all sports evolve. The more we learn, the more we know. The more we move to create safer environments for athletes, and the most violent of sports tend to evolve into a place that puts more of the emphasis on the health of the well-being of athletes. Per Unzue, cycling should be no different. We can't humanize this, Unzue wondered. So that's what Mr. Unzue had to say. And the first thing that comes to mind is a substitute rider is you think of football or soccer, as you some people call it, but it's called football. And as you see, most football players, like when they're playing, if they they feel they want to gain an advantage or they feel they're being treated unfairly, they go down and they dive and they pretend like, oh, I'm really, really injured, and try to get the other players like penalized and whatnot. So you could possibly have the same effect, and like that can very much happen with the riders. Like someone goes down or says they're sick and they can't continue, so they can bring in a fresher rider. Or what was the other thing that was in my head? So they could bring in a fresher rider. But he did have a point where he said that if you did bring in the fresher rider and something happened, then they have to start at the at last place. So as we see in the Tour de France, sometimes the first and last place rider can be 10 to 15 hours in separation, because riders will gain like an hour 45 minutes every day. Some riders they gain a lot of time. So if your rider came in fresh and he was competing the rider that went out and he had to go to last place, because he's a fresher rider, that means he has an advantage. So he has to try to use his advantage to gain that time that he's been penalized or he's been handicapped. So he gets a handicapped time to get things started. So I just don't see it for cycling. I don't see it for the sport of cycling. You need to leave your comments. Let me know what you think. I don't think it could work. Because cycling, the whole thing is you train and you work hard to be the strongest, to last the longest. Cycling is basically a race of attrition. And those who put in the most miles and do the most work are the ones who come out on top, because they can go the longest, the hardest. So when you bring in these substitute riders, that changes up everything, so you don't even have to really train per se. As to, like if you put in that work to do a 3-week tour, you don't have to put in that work to do a 3-week tour anymore. You just put in the work to do a 1-week tour or 1 day, whatever. So, but there are some suggestions and some rules that I'm going to get into the next video. And so we're going to get into the next video. Make sure you check the next video. So I'm going to give you a little bit of wardrobe change as well too. So we're going to do the black t-shirt for this one and the white t-shirt for the next one. So the white t-shirt will be the rule changes. So like the white t-shirt represents the white paper, which we're writing the rules on. Anyway, let me get out of this. So check out the t-shirts, steal the t-shirts, hit the email, hit me up, and I will get you, some getting them to America. It's going to be a little more expensive because the postage is crazy. But if you're in Europe anywhere, postage is going to be cheap, and it's going to be relatively, that's not going to cost you so much. It's going to be, affordable. So that's that. So, and a big shout out to Supacolour again. Supacolour, they do the heat transfers. They make, it's like the quality of the heat transfers is amazing. And then lastly, but not least, is price cards. They are my go-to guys. And a link is in the description for everything if you want to, get linked up. So with that, we're coming up on 10 minutes. I do appreciate you, and check out part 2 of this, where we're going to get into some of the ideas and things that they, are suggesting for these substitutions. They're wild. So stay tuned. Alrighty, I appreciate you. Yep. Remember, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You know how we do. And it's literally, say it with your legs. Get out on your bike. Don't talk about it. Don't be about it. Say it with your legs.
Legs Media. You know what to do. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thanks. We got lots of stuff coming up.